listeners, this is the #1 potato boss bringing you the MogPod Final Fantasy TCG podcast. This is the first fully dedicated podcast for the Final Fantasy trading card game. We're a bi-weekly podcast discussing the card game from the meta reports, specific cards and their interactions, and our in-depth review of an element and more. Now, first, let's introduce the cast. On my right, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Chris.
Yeah, and like I said, I am the #1 potato boss. Let's just start with the introductions first. My real name is Murad. My favorite card from Final Fantasy trading card game is Tama. I love playing Earth. I love being aggro with Earth. I've previously played Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh. My favorite Final Fantasy game is the Final Fantasy 13 franchise. My favorite thing about the Final Fantasy card game is that every element, is in the meta, and it's in a very healthy state right now. Let's go to Kevin.
So my favorite card is probably Steiner. I play that in like every deck. As you know, that means I like playing water. That's my favorite playstyle. I feel like it's really flexible. I come from kind of a Magic background. I've also played Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh, Duel Masters and stuff. My favorite Final Fantasy game is probably 14 right now. I've been playing that pretty often. And my favorite thing about the game is the resource system. If you've played some of the other games, it's completely different from everything, and it's just it never feels like you're out of the game. My most disliked thing is probably EX bursts, though. Too much variance.
People getting lucky.
Yes. I hate that.
I'm Jared. My favourite card would have to be the Light Cloud, the original Light Cloud, best Light Cloud, or maybe not, but that's just because my favourite game was 7. I'm a cliche like that. Favourite playstyle element probably be Mono Fire. My previous gaming experiences, trading card game experiences, heavily influenced by Magic, a little bit of Hearthstone, and I used to be very into the old Legend of the Five Rings card game. My favourite thing about the Final Fantasy trading card game, like Kevin said, is the very unique resource system and the fact that at all points in the game you can answer your opponent's actions.
Okay, so it's just me now. I'm Chris, and my favourite card is probably Mecha Chocobo, even though it's not out yet. You might see it, but if it were one that is out yet, it might be Mumba. Even though I hardly play it, I just really like what it did for Ice at the time it came out. Just filled in a lot of holes, and that leads into my favourite element is indeed Ice. I really like controlling the way Ice controls the board is my favourite thing about it, and how many of its forwards do things very good. I really like the Final Fantasy 13 game, and that probably is what got me into Ice in the first place, is from the starter. And my favourite thing about Final Fantasy TCG is it's very resistant to OTKs, because everything only does 1 damage, and there aren't yet any infinite combos. And the thing I dislike about it the most is I don't know. I actually really like it. Like getting Odin EX to kill one of your forwards is kind of sucky, but EXs are also kind of cool.
Yeah, feel their EX bursts, I think.
Yeah, so...
But then feel good EX bursts feel so good.
Yeah, so I think you guys got a pretty good idea of, who we are and what we like about the card game. Let's go into our first segment, which is the feature card of the podcast. And this time, because of Chris, we have to make a Chocobo.
I love Mecha Chocobo.
Oh my god.
And so the proselytizing continues.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So since you love it so much about Chris, give us like a 30-second rundown of what it is and what does it do.
Okay, so Mecha Chocobo. It's called Mecha Chocobo. It's not a common soldier, so sadly you can only have one Mecha Chocobo. And its job is mech, not Chocobo. It's a 4-drop 7k. It cannot be chosen by summons, and this includes your own summons as well as your opponent's summons. And when it attacks, you select a 4-drop or less that your opponent controls that's dull, and break it. But when Mecha Chocobo is blocked, Mecha Chocobo breaks. So some of us I know have different opinions on how relevant that last line of text is.
Just
Okay.
for reference, listeners, Chris recited that all from memory. He's just that keen when it
I'm
comes
really
to
excited
discussing
for
Mecha Chocobo.
Because I think it's going to be really interesting. Not necessarily that it's just going to go into every ice deck. I don't think it's... Because I think that last line of text is very, very relevant.
It is an insane drawback.
I personally think it's disgusting. But
Disgusting
Only
how? I mean,
more-
it's so cute. How could you look at a face like Mecha Chocobo's and not just go,
Well-
aww?
What I like about it is it's filling... It's more answers, especially for Garnet. I play against a lot of Mono Water because I play against a lot of Kevin.
Hey.
Uh,
I only play 3 garnets every deck.
And there's more... Ice already has Zalora, which is nice, but I found Zalora to become extremely important. I'd run about 100 Zaloras if I could against water. Because it just... Especially since he started putting in Cecil. And I kind of now need to save my Zaloras for Cecil, and Garnet is starting to get stretched a bit thin. So Mecha Chocobo can answer Garnet even if it dies on the attack. It's just a really slow Odin in that case that can hit
Yeah.
Garnet. I play Ice Lightning for reference, so I
Yeah.
will have Dragon. But
oh, okay.
it doesn't, like compared to Genesis. Genesis does both. It advances your strategy by dulling and freezing a forward when it comes into play. And then it also takes advantage of getting through for damage by making your opponent discard. As Mecha Chocobo just does one of those things.
Yeah.
I mean,
All pay off.
killing one of their
It's completely
4-drops, you can kind of say, is advancing the strategy of getting through. But I kind of like to put it more as a value, payoff side.
Yeah, I definitely understand it. But let's just focus a little more on that cannot be chosen by summons. Like I immediately saw that as like as like a huge boon to it.
But it could be a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
right? You can't Belias it, you can't Golem it.
Mecha
you
Chocobo
can't-
wants haste.
Yeah, exactly. So-
Yeah,
Really
which
bad.
is a big deal, so not being able to Belias it.
Yeah. So that's why I think it'd be better with lightning and fire because of Red Mage in lightning
Yeah,
giving
yeah.
a haste.
Yeah.
And Sage and Fire.
But Sage is a lot
Sage, yeah.
harder to do at the right time.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, giving it haste makes the first line incredibly relevant because after it has haste, the only answer to it is summons. and
It'll be interesting how
can't
monsters
summon.
affect this though.
Yes, that's
Well,
true.
Yeah.
I think there are other answers insofar as it can only affect your dull forwards and any sylph or fairy or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you're the defender and you're
Mm.
facing down a hasty Mecha Chocobo, you want to be a person who has access
Yeah.
to one of those activators.
Yeah, you definitely need to
Because
keep...
then that nullifies all of the resources that your opponent has just put into a hasty Mecha Chocobo, which is significant.
I think it's so interesting because now people when they verse against ice and they suspect that they have Mecha Chocobo, not only do they need to have an answer for like a summon that's instant, they probably need like an ability if they do put down a hasty Mecha Chocobo.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people like, hey, I'll keep the summon and I'll be safe, but then like they put hasty Mecha Chocobo,
That's true.
you're not so safe anymore.
I think it's difficult to evaluate too because Mecha Chocobo is a card that's going to exist in an environment where we have access to monsters as well, and like Chris already brought up, what is it? It's dragon, right?
Dragon can kill it, and also like Behemoth.
Yeah.
Because these things can dodge the main phase removal,
Yeah.
and then in combat suddenly activate and block Mecha Chocobo. And
Yeah.
you can't dull it first. You have to have summon speed dull in
So-
order to get Mecha Chocobo through.
No.
Which
no.
actually leads me to another point I wanted to discuss about it, where I've heard people say that it's a bit Winmore-ish, because for it to get through for damage, you basically need to have all their things dull,
Yeah.
or Zemus it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can understand that from, like, when you use Renoa, for instance, the forward Renoa, to dull all of your opponent's forwards, you're usually winning that turn unless it was a defensive dull. And Mecha Chocobo, it doesn't have to always be at that stage in the game. Like, if it's early in the game, dulling 2 forwards isn't a big investment for Ice.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
Ice Lightning,
Yeah.
like with Amon and things.
That's right.
So I don't think it's win more. It helps you snowball further into the game.
It sort of closes the envelope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you also almost always need to keep an instant dull in your hand or on board like aim on, because if they activate whatever
Yeah.
you targeted with it, then they can
Yeah,
block it.
depending on
and
the
it
Yeah,
gets-
yeah. And that's kind of the reason why I really love the card Tama. Like the thing I want to do against Chris is Tama and a Viking. And then block with the Viking, and then make a Chocobo dies.
Or
Yeah.
Scarmiglione,
Oh,
back
yeah.
attack.
Yeah, back attack. Yeah, a lot of people use that.
Yeah.
Well, if Mecha Chocobo starts,
Yeah.
I'm
Coming
really
prolific.
excited about the interactions that are going to pop up because of Mecha Chocobo existing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's the best ice forward. Like I really like Genesis and Cujo,
Yeah.
but it existing is going to change how games.
people
That's
are
right.
people are going
Out
to
of
have to
order.
respect the
Mm.
potential for
Yeah.
it to
The-
start taking over a game.
I'm not sure if a lot of people do realize though. It's just that the break happens on the attack. It doesn't happen after he deals damage. It doesn't happen after the attack goes through. It happens when he attacks. So like, yeah, I don't know. That's just strong in itself.
Yeah, to
It is.
Yeah.
That
Well,
way-
you
I
have
mean,
to
look at
remove
the
it.
dominance of cards like Emperor Zandi
Yeah.
during the Opus 2 season. Those effects
still.
are always it was
Yeah.
still those free effects that happen on a turn by turn basis can push a player ahead.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is any particular. I mean, we talked about a lot of counters,
Mhm.
but would this card be used in like a counter to any other?
Garnet.
Yeah, but like
it
it's-
solves the summon proof problem that Garnet has. That I mean,
and this is summon proof as well.
Yeah. So against water.
yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely really pushes the monsters. I think that's what they're trying to do with this card.
it does scare away those aggressive trays. Not that there are many aggressive trays, but
Yeah, it punishes
Yeah.
aggression, which is what ice does.
Yeah.
Because you kind of need to defend against this, or you just lose your things every turn. So, although the new cloud that's coming out in
Yeah.
Opus 4,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
are pretty solid.
when that was first spoiled before Mecha Chocobo, I was really happy because it meant that ice would get more OP 7k 4-drop cards.
Yeah.
And here we go.
That's
Here
where
we go.
ice sits, right? All of
Yeah.
these wonderful 7k forwards, Kuja
Yeah.
and Genesis. Like,
Yeah, just in case people don't realize, the new cloud when enters the field deals 7k damage, if it has another FF7 forward. So that's the whole reason about
Yeah.
that.
So I can hit Mecha Chocobo.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they're really
They kill
pushing 7k as the relevant threshold for anything that has an effect, I think.
Yeah.
At least in ice.
Yeah.
But like the 7k doesn't really matter. The 7k is just like health. Like
Yeah.
you know this game like
Yeah.
power is like health and damage. For Mecha
Yeah.
Chocobo, his health is 1. His health is 7k. But if he gets blocked, I don't know. His damage is.
the opposing forward has like mega first strike.
Yeah, something like that.
Breaks it.
Something like that. First strike times 1,000. Okay, I think that we talked enough about it. Let's go to the to our next segment. The element encyclopedia. Every podcast we're going to talk about a particular element and go deeper into what the element does and what it's doing right now in the current meta. And the element that we chosen to just go chronologically is fire. So, Jared, I know you play a lot of fire.
Fire!
Set him up now.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. So yeah, you play a lot of fire. Just tell us what is fire, what does it do, and how would you how would you compare it to like other TCGs in terms of what fire is?
Well, in a lot of trading card games, like the sort of the fire archetype is always the aggressive archetype, and that I think remains true in Final Fantasy, though it leverages its removal and its aggression along a different axis. I think a lot of the time, like Mecha Chocobo is a payoff card. Your payoff cards in Fire do similar things. You've got things like Zandi that reward you for attacking and then restrict your opponent's access to blocking. Things like Red Mage or just burning away the defenses.
They can always just stop defense straight up.
That's
Oh, yeah,
true
with the
with
blocking.
the Red Mage, right?
I don't know, but I think there's gonna be more cards that stop forwards from blocking and.
You think
with
there's
fire.
going to be more of them?
Yeah, like
we've
a
had
different
a
type.
whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
In Opus 1 we had Red Mage, in Opus 2 we had the legendary Tifa.
Oh,
and
yeah,
there was
yeah.
Zell. I mean, I
Oh,
like
and then-
Zell,
and
but he's not quite good enough. And
And there was the water ninja in Opus 3. The S special is like cannot attack a block.
Izayo.
oh yeah,
Yeah, the S is like cannot attack a block.
We got imaginary brawler in Opus
Yes,
3.
and imaginary brawler has been a big deal in the.
No, I guess I was specifically talking about a monster that does it. But that would be
a monster that
yeah,
does
yeah,
actually
yeah.
that I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's
I think that's probably a foregone conclusion. We'll have some kind of monster that interacts with your opponent's ability to
Yeah.
block. Because the only monster that we have seen for fire so far is Bomb, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I quite like Bomb.
But it doesn't stop Mecha Chocobo.
It doesn't stop Mecha Chocobo because he can't be a forward during your opponent's turn, unfortunately.
Oh. No.
Which is
it does.
Yeah,
It
you
does.
can,
It
yeah.
becomes a 4 to 5,000 power.
Yeah.
you can only use this ability. Oh,
Once per turn.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
oh, it can.
Oh.
Ooh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Chris,
Another
you
counter.
misled me, you Mecha Chocobo.
Now he's going to use it against me.
This. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a big deal or not, but
Well, it's just the cheapest
it
thing.
can block.
It's pretty cheap though. Like
Yeah.
you
No,
put
I
down
mean-
2 and then you only pay 1 fire.
One thing I haven't actually checked with bombs. They don't have the same restriction that backups do, right? We can have any number of monsters.
You can have infinite
That's correct.
monsters.
Oh, that's good. I was worried about that.
We're making a whole monster deck.
What's the deck?
Not straight away.
With like
Hey,
the
wait.
3
It
monsters
could be
in
a
the set.
fun idea to mess around with.
Oh yeah, like no forwards, all monsters instead of.
Yeah, that's gonna be an expensive deck.
Well, anyway, so with fire, what are the popular combos with fire, or is it just like they all combo with each other pretty much?
Burn
It's
plus
just
burn.
lots of burn, yeah.
Efficient burn is always
Yeah, that's right.
like burn attached to a body or burn attached to a backup.
Yeah.
So you're never spending time to just burn. Like Zandy is the perfect example because he's already a giant body,
That's right. Yeah.
right? And he's gonna come in every turn for damage, and if they manage to stop him, he's still going to remove a blocker. So it's all about efficiency in your removal.
Yeah, because like when you compare it to other elements like wind and ice and lightning, they have ping damage, they have their damage as well, but it's not as quite as efficient as fire. I mean, the fire got the 2-cost backup VV, and like 2 mana for 5,000.
The problem
Burn,
with
that's-
that
that's
is it's
a lot.
called VV.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Close
that's
off
true.
access to other exceptionally
That's true.
efficient
but-
pieces of removal.
But there
But-
is the forward VV.
Yeah, it is,
There are-
yeah,
there
yeah.
are-
Which
there
is
are two of them.
also
Which is also very good, but like when that backup VV came, it made the lightning backup Magus on lightning, very very bad.
Well, you got to remember the lightning one is a standard unit. You can
That's right,
You can
yeah,
play
yeah.
more than one of them. You
Yeah.
can't play VV to deal 10k, but you
That's
can
right.
play Magus to deal 10k.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But I think therein lies one of Fire's weaknesses, though. You're a lot of the time, while you've got these efficient pieces of removal insofar as the removal attached to a backup or a body, so you're advancing your game plan, you often have to team them up, combine them together, which means you end up with problems when you're facing down a Minwoo. In some cases, you won't have enough damage to kill a Larsa. Somebody could activate a Rosa on you, and then all of a sudden,
yeah.
all of your removal stops. You've still got, like, Zandy's the king of fire, or
Yeah.
the emperor of fire, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, he's still huge and going to deal 9k to something if they
Yeah.
kill him. But Zandy and maybe Bahamut aside, your big solitary chunks of damage, they're not all too many in fire.
This Teller.
Tell us. Well, I've been trying to get Luca to lightning brain blast
Oh
somebody
yeah, that's
to
10k.
10k, but it's
Th-
maybe a little
so-
too fragile.
This discussion has been focusing very much on the controlling elements of fire, though.
Yeah.
And fires tends to be a very aggressive
That's
colour.
true, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it does have options when once its removal shut down, it gets rewarded very heavily for attacking.
That's right. Yeah.
There's
Uh,
tons of
I just want to get back to Tela just for a little second. Like, Tela is very reminiscent of a backup like Devout, where like ice you almost never see an ice deck without Devout. Well, you barely see Tela. I think the main reason is because like fire doesn't do so well with the holding all those resources back for
Yeah.
later on.
And I think that
Yeah.
comes down to the fact that with most majority fire decks, you're put into a position where in order to advance your gameplay, you have to be aggressive.
Yeah.
You have to be just pushing the envelope and trying to close out your opponent's game.
Mhm.
Tell us a very specific answer to problem cards
That's
you
right,
might be
yeah,
expecting.
It's also very telegraphed.
Oh my god.
It is really slow. On the other hand, they can always play around it. They can
That's right, yeah.
play a bunch of 7Ks instead of a big game.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about ping, but fire, ping, and like not be able to block. But fire also powers up your forwards.
On the attack, usually.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
selfie.
With
Yeah, bard. And
lots of effects that only either say attacking creatures or during your turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like things that can attach to things you can only play in your turn, like forwards.
Yeah.
So that means it's only relevant when you're attacking anyway.
Oh, and like I think Sync is a card that's very unique in fire.
Sync I also
Yeah.
think is dramatically underplayed.
It's also very different to what fire usually wants to do. It makes them block, which is
well half of your removal happens during combat, right? So sync turns on, or like your opponent can try to avoid or ignore your attackers, and sync just makes sure that can't happen. And there's also like fire is one of the elements that gets the most first strike, right? So it also has that going for it. So you can leverage sync against your first strike attacking red 13 or your recently Beliased forwards and things like that. Ooh, another fire card I desperately love is Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's one of those cards that's only going to get better the longer the game goes. As more, just like what is it, Golbez in Lightning.
That's right.
The more effective 2-drop forwards that get printed, the better Phoenix is going to
They
become.
keep printing 5-drop or more hate though.
That's true.
No, the really interesting about Phoenix is that even the meta, there was at least one deck that heavily relied on the Phoenix Krill combo.
Oh, Phoenix and Krill.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite thing it's Krill's an Earth forward.
Yes,
my
yeah.
my favorite Earth forward with which to Phoenix is Scarmiglione.
Okay.
Because then I have wrathed my opponent's boards during their combat by Phoenixing back Scarmiglione and then using his S ability to bring him back, and then all of a sudden my opponent has gone from 4 attacking forwards to none.
It's also very disgusting. But yeah, so there's other like an Opus 3. There was a really cool mechanic they added to Fire was that punishing players for holding a lot of cards in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like Fire didn't really have access to that before, and I think I really like that, especially because I think the developers saw Water and Water Winds coming up, in a lot of tournaments, and they were like, hey, we need to do something about all these people hoarding all these cards.
Now, specifically, you're talking about Black Hawks 2 and VV.
That's right.
Legendary VV.
Yeah, the forward VV. When I went to Wellington for the regional tournament, the guy who came second, he would refuse to go down under 5 cards. He would always have 4 or 5 cards.
What archetype was he playing?
It was mono water.
Mono.
Yeah. So he was mono water, and he refused to go under 4 cards. Like he like.
Oh.
And it worked out well for him. I mean, he won like almost every match, but like these type of cards actually punish these type of players.
It reminds me about another point about Fire in general, is that how it wins the board usually is it attacks.
Yeah.
And so it forces your opponent, by punishing defensive play, it forces your opponent to also attack you back, otherwise they're not getting any value from their forwards that just can't block or getting burned out. And then your deck is better at racing as Fire. So it forces your opponent into a specific playstyle, and then you're better at that playstyle than them. That's usually how Fire goes about it.
There are even cards
The
that
aggressive
once
Fire.
you've pushed your opponent into that position, you've got cards like the 2-drop forward Zaz that was promoted last month.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're putting your opponent into a position where they have to attack you, you can just wear some of that, and all of a sudden you've got this little mini Emperor Zandy.
And then you can
Emperor
attack with
Zazdy.
them, and then
Emperor Zazdy. There we go.
Emperor Zazdy. Okay. Yeah. So like other than the Phoenix, I guess Phoenix Krill combo, what other combos do you think isn't like fire, or you just think that all the fire cards usually work well with each other?
Burn and Belias.
The recent printing of the 4-drop heroic Palom and the Opus 2 Summoner also open up a lot of opportunities. They also help with the Min-Wu problem that fire and damage based removal tend to encounter. One thing I've been having a lot of fun with playing recently is a deck that runs both of those effects and ice for Mumba, which then you once you've got your Palom in play or you've broken your Summoner for a turn, any Mumba you draw just insta kills any forward.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, I want to go just a little bit talk about the legendary Caius, and there's just more 7K hate.
Yeah. Caius card coming from the
new Opus.
in the new set.
Yeah, so pretty much he's a 6-drop 9K. When he comes to the field, you can search for a Bahamut, and then when he attacks, you can discard a Bahamut, and he deals 7K to anything you choose. So like more 7K hate, and I think there's gonna be more 7K cards other than Mecha Chocobo that are gonna be strong. But
there's existing 7K cards that are very strong.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple ways to look at Caius at this point in time. We still haven't seen we still haven't seen most of the cards from Opus 4 yet, but I think one of the key elements we're going to have to judge Caius on is whether or not the Bahamut that we assume will be in Opus 4 is going to really push him into decks, because he kind of sits in Zandy's slot. You've got a little bit of leeway to play Caius with Zandy, like a couple. You can run a couple of each, but I worry that.
And there's also Zac.
Yep, there's that. There are so many big fire forwards competing for those slots.
I guess that's a problem.
I loved playing Bahamut in Opus 1, and Caius can find that Bahamut. So I may end up finding just using him like Lightning players have been using the Opus 1 Legendary Lightning. At the end of the day, you end up with this powerful legendary summon in your hand, and I've won plenty of games just on the backs of Bahamuts.
It really does depend on this other Bahamut, if there is one, because quite often the Bahamut that currently exists will be a downgrade from a card in your hand, because you're discarding, presumably, to pay for Caius's cost, which is turning into Bahamut.
Yeah, it's like a fake forecast.
Yeah.
But you have to discard, like you have to get rid of a card in your hand that you might find worthy.
One of the things you have to keep in mind also is this Caius is probably going to want to sit in those mono-fire decks that like to build lots of backups that they play their BBs and things.
It's interesting that you say mono-fire. I would have thought it's more of like a cheap man Zendy for not mono-fire.
That's also.
I think we'll definitely see play in Fire Ice, because they can even search for him in Ice.
They can with
with MogPod
13.
That doesn't EX.
But just as like a little speculation, I think the new Bahamut is gonna do something with monsters. It's gonna be like destroy this monster or deal like 5k damage or something like that.
Every element's probably gonna get their own flavor of dealing with monsters.
I
expect a Leviathan that bounces monsters.
A monster. Well, like water's gonna have that.
Something like this.
Well, here's an idea, and this is probably like tomorrow. We'll get this a bit spoiled, and it'll be nothing like what I'm thinking it'll be. But what about like a summon that deals damage to a forward, but deals more damage to a forward if that forward is also a monster? Something like that feels like a fire answer to two monsters.
Alright, like say 7k, but if it's a monster, it deals 9k. So
something like that.
So it can deal with Behemoth.
Something like
Well, I mean, does Behemoth?
Isn't it 8k? Let me look.
He's at 8k. He deals half the damage he takes back to the forward that dealt damage to it.
Which means that if you hit him with a summon, he's not going to be able to do anything anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of thing will work. So what kind of other elements will work well with fire? So like we've talked about modifier a lot, and there's a lot of cards that lend itself well with modifier. But like, what are like 2 or 3 of the other elements that like work really well with fire? That you would recommend people to try out.
I think one of the strengths of this game, at least as it's grown over the last 4 sets, is that each of the elements brings something to the table when combining it with one of the other elements. Like it's like Phoenix interacts positively with those efficient Earth forwards. You've got Palom that interacts positively with any damage outside of fire, in addition to all of the damage that fire deals. Anyone else want to?
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like,
yeah.
like you're saying with Palom, like Mumba, as you brought up before,
Yeah.
but also Barb, Arucha,
Yeah.
and Wind. Wind tends to have a lot of repeatable effects, which goes really well with Palom.
Yeah.
But its things are also really small, so they die too often.
Fire's ability to give things haste is
It's
Ah.
pretty
like
valuable. And
Those ice forwards like Mecha, Chocobo, Genesis,
Yeah.
and Kuja.
It's really interesting because like fire does like power up and that gets better that makes Earth better,
I think.
and then it
Well, yeah, go ahead.
and then it has like Pang that also makes Wind better, but then it also has specific cards that people will be like, oh, this will go well with water, with Ferris and the Porom and the Palom and stuff, but you don't actually see that, which is
Fire
Yeah.
has a lot of
Well-
specific synergies with water cards. You've got
Yeah.
Palom, Borum, Ash, and Bash.
Nice.
Ferris and Lena.
9
Yeah,
boards.
yeah, the
the
entire nine
package.
Okay, Kevin,
Yeah,
talk about that.
I have
deck.
a Final Fantasy IX deck which just plays the 5 Final Fantasy IX backups and just undoes them all with Zidane and then just gets tons of resources every turn.
So
It's
I like
terrifying.
the
Yeah.
fire-water synergies that exist tend to be archetypal. What's the category archetypes?
Yeah, that's
more
right.
than anything
That's
else.
right,
You've
yeah.
got like Ferris and Lena and Sildra. They're all within
Seven.
their category.
Category
Yeah.
7 is heavily in fire.
That's
elements,
true, yeah.
Like the
That's-
searches in Earth.
Mhm.
That's right, yeah. So that's why Earth is also good with fire.
Oh, light as well.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up as 4.
The light
Oh, the light
cloud.
cloud. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, all
Which is a
of
fire,
of the
it's called.
light clouds are actually just fire cards in
That's
disguise.
right. That's right.
I mean, even the original Opus 1 Light Cloud, is his Meteorine ability is a damage-based ability,
Yeah,
which you
yeah.
expect to find in fire.
And-
And it synergizes with fire abilities, like you can Meteorine and then pop your bomb if you like.
You also have
Yes.
other clouds in fire.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Okay, so as you guys know, fire isn't actually in the meta right now, unfortunately.
Fire's always in the mix.
Well, I mean,
I'm
like.
happy because fire's removal pwns ice.
So maybe when we see ice, really heavy in the meta, we'll see fire again. But like, part of the reason why it's not in the meta is because of all the value plays and other elements. But
Well, it's mostly due to a card called Minwu.
Okay. Oh no. Because see that's the other thing that's good with Earth Hecaton Care. Like Earth opens up the Hecaton Care, so you don't have to care
Well,
about that.
access to wind or earth. Because in wind you also got Archer.
Yeah. So I would say those are the two elements that's best synergized with fire.
It's what we bringing up cloud just before is interesting when you think about fire, because fire's biggest problem on the other side of the table is always going to be Minwu, Larsa, or an effect like it,
Yeah.
right? A mono fire deck always has to make a very important choice if they're going to include as to whether or not they're going to include one of the clouds
Or the
or
Sephiroth.
Sephiroth, because you need to answer those effects, and
That's right.
they're mostly on
You can
Minwu.
build the deck to not is all in on burn though.
That's true.
Like there's a couple big burns with Zandy and Vivi,
Mm-hmm.
and Vivi, and then it has the other element of fire where you just can't block.
Yeah. And look, I just want to touch on the Sephiroth. The reason why Sephiroth is so high costed is because there isn't many other cards that can do the same thing that he does. And
His cost is fair for the effect that he yields, because there are so many deck archetypes that rely on particular backups being in play, and just having a carte blanche answer to any backup is gonna ruin some decks or
Exactly.
set back others.
It's actually completely fairly costed though, because even if you just kill a 2-drop, they have to pay 2 for the backup and the actual card. So it's a 2-card investment by them, which Sephiroth, if you subtract 4 from the cost, he's just a 4-cost 8k first track, which is above the curve.
Yeah, but in the Japanese, he was 7 cost apparently.
Well,
The chapter.
you're wanting to cast him in the late game, right?
Yeah.
When you've got your build up of backup, so he's got that usually 4-point discount.
Yeah.
So
and the other thing
First Strike also synergizes
with fire.
with all of Fire's
Yeah,
removal
that's right.
anyway. So once you've gotten rid of the Minwu, then all of a sudden you've got this great big body that interacts positively with all the removal that
Yeah.
he's there to protect.
I just hope no one else goes through the pain of having to play Sephiroth into a Yag Rush.
Oh yeah, that happened a lot with the Water Light.
Exactly, yeah. Every
Yeah.
time, seriously, every
I wish I
time.
had Yag Rush in ice. I hate it when Sephiroth hits you out.
Well,
that's so punishing.
you do have Dr. Sin.
Yeah, Dr. Sin! Come on, it's a hero card! It must be good,
Oh
right?
my god, Dr. Sin.
Ice is the worst cards in the game.
He's one of the
One of
coolest
the best
characters in the whole
world.
franchise, Dr. Sin, you know.
Okay, so actually, I think we talked about enough about fire, but I want to just go into the potential monster cards. There was actually there was quite a few monster cards in the chapter series, but I took out a few that weren't overpowered and that are pretty likely to come up if they do come up. Yeah, so here they are. We got this 3-cost monster called Suzaku. Whenever you summon a summon, that's so weird. Choose one forward. You may pay 1 fire crystal. If you do so, deal it 2,000 damage. And then you can pay 1 fire crystal until the end of the turn. It's a forward of 8,000 power.
Okay, so it's like again, like those Palom effects, but specifically for summon.
That's right, yeah. And I don't know, I have a pretty good feeling about this card because I also feel like Water is going to get that Ovilia Legendary backup. And the Ovilia Legendary backup is a blanket minus 1,000 power damage received on your forwards.
Okay.
I think this is really nice for fire because with fire's summon removal in particular, it has the different thresholds.
Yeah.
It has 1-drop Ifrit, which does 4k,
Yeah.
2-drop Ifrit, which does 6k, 3-drop Renilda, which does 7k,
Yeah.
and this card lets you get the flexibility to just put in like Ifrit, and now it can
That's
kill
right.
things like 3-drops or 4-drops.
Yeah, it's like a Bahamut Fury on a monster that you can use anytime.
Yeah,
Mm.
gives you the
It's really
flexibility,
cool.
and
You
it's
can
also
have-
8,000 power forward
Yeah.
if it doesn't do anything else.
You can have more than one of these in play.
Oh my god.
I don't think is it really?
No, you're
No,
right.
it doesn't have that
It's
little
not a
multiple
Oh,
symbol.
it
It doesn't. It's pretty unique, but it's still I think is a very good card. And like
I have
maybe you don't even want to kill Minwu if you can just increase your summons by 2,000.
Well, no,
I
it
haven't
doesn't
done
increase by 2,000. It does 2k.
Oh, right,
So
right.
it gets
Yeah,
wrecked
yeah.
by Minwu.
Okay, gets wrecked by me. Okay,
the other monsters. Do they have the?
Bomb
I
does.
just because
Yeah.
I'm
They
pretty
do,
sure
they
it's
do.
on bomb.
Bomb has the generic icon.
Yeah.
But
But any of the other ones?
Behemoth
Well-
doesn't.
Behemoth doesn't.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
sure about Ahriman.
I don't think it does because Dragon doesn't have it.
Okay.
I think Ahriman has it. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Ahriman has it, so you can put more than 1 Ahriman in play.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
In case they have like a board of 5 drops you need.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I like this is like when I read it, I was like, this is a pretty good
Yeah, no,
monster.
that's
And it's pretty balanced. Like you can't say that.
No,
No,
it's
it's-
cost a dex slot, and then once you've attacked with it, once you turn it into forward more than once, it's costing more than it's worth.
That's right.
Its
That's right.
auto ability also has a cost
Mm.
as well.
That's
so
right,
it's
yeah.
not just going to automatically trigger your like if you're using it to buff up your say your 2-drop Opus to Ifrit
Yeah.
to a deal 8k, you're still now having to pay 3 for it.
Yeah.
But
And it's still an investment.
it's a separate trigger,
Mm.
so there's still all that flexibility there
That's right.
that you like in these smaller summons.
One of the next monsters in fire was Roll Spider. I don't even know what Final Fantasy this is from, but pretty much it's a 2-cost monster.
Mhm.
You pay 1 fire crystal until the end of the turn. It's a Roll Spider. There's a forward with 8,000 power, and it has haste, and this can only be used during your turn.
Okay, so it's effectively a 3 CP 8k haste.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
it's
is
pretty
that's
disgusting.
above the curve
Yeah.
everywhere else. I mean
It's above the curve the first time you use it. It's average the second time you
Yeah.
use it, and
Yeah.
it just gets worse.
it's decaying in its efficiency.
Yeah.
I think
It
I
also can't block, which
Which
is I
is-
think a
that's
significant
right.
detail.
That's right. Yeah. But I think the reason why I put this is because I think there's gonna be fire monster, maybe even not in this opus or a future opus, that's gonna do something with haste.
That's something that's inherent
it's
to
like-
all
yeah.
monsters, which came up in our Mecha Chocobo discussion, is that they dodge all the main phase removal
Yeah.
until you turn it into a monster. So as a monster, sorry, as a forward, it's a forward that your opponent can't interact with on their turn.
Yeah.
Mm.
They have to deal with it in monster form. So that's, even though it's a decaying value that you're getting by paying 1 each time to turn it into an 8k forward with haste, it's turning off from forward mode instead of dodging a lot of movement, so that's value in itself. So it's to make both sides. I think it seems really good for an aggressive strategy.
It is, yeah. It is.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely to reprint it as like maybe a common. It seems pretty vanilla and basic to introduce the player base to monsters.
No, but really, it's like a 3-cost 8k haste. That's so good.
It is. It's an 8k haste that can't block.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. I mean, you're not. Granted, you're usually not going to block with your haste attacks, but just putting that line of text on something gives you a lot more room to maneuver when you're talking about average power.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So next monster. I actually really like this monster.
I know. This one.
It's a 5-cost fire monster called Mutant Tomato. Mutant Tomato.
Mutant Tomato.
Mutant Tomato. Yeah. Anyways, so it's Royal Ripeness. I don't know. Maybe is that her name?
Royal Ripeness is another. It will be
It's
another
another
card.
monster.
It'll be
Okay.
another monster card. It's
Okay.
a specific character.
Okay. Never mind. So yeah, Royal Ripeness can't be chosen by a target of fire element effects.
Oh,
So pretty much it's immune to any fire card.
Yep.
That's really interesting. But if you pay, so it's just a 5-cost monster that does nothing. But if you pay 3 fire crystals until the end of the turn, Royal Ripeness is also forward with 9,000 power, and the ability when Royal Ripeness attacks the other card, deal 4,000 damage to all forwards opponent controls.
No,
That's strange. Is it not talking about itself?
it seems like
Yeah,
it is talking
I
about
feel like I feel like it should be talking about
Yeah,
itself. right?
in Final Fantasy 13 2, which is where this monster is from, Mutant Tomato
Actually,
is the small version of Royal Ripeness. So it might be
Okay.
trying to talk about itself.
Okay.
Oh,
so
okay,
it's
okay,
probably
okay.
just a translation.
actually, there's this little small translation error. It's actually 2 fire crystal, not 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as you can see here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, even though at 2 fire crystal, what do you think of that effect?
So what is the forward again?
So it becomes to turn 9k forward, and then when it
Wow.
attacks, deals 4,000 damage.
That's very
So
expensive.
all forwards opponent
Yeah.
controls.
That's a pretty big effect.
That's
Is it?
kind of like the Lightning Orlando.
Is it? Yeah, I was just about to say, and
Yeah.
Orlando's not very good.
Yeah, and you have to pay extra, and you have to wait a turn. So this is 7 cost the next turn.
No, you don't have to wait a turn.
No, this doesn't have haste. You can't attack the turn you play.
And you can't give it haste.
Yeah, because
Does
it's
it come with it?
Yeah.
Time of
Oh
fire.
man, that's so
Well,
bad.
you could use a lightning red mage.
I guess so.
But at that point, you've paid
You
9
want to play
CP.
Orlando.
9 CP.
Yeah. You can for 7 pay Orlando and give him haste.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I thought this would, because this is like a rare card. I think it's like kind of cool is that it's a fire card that counters other fire cards. Like you think at this point in time, was there a lot of fire being played in the Japan or?
Well, that's probably why it's not printed.
Oh,
These are just all from chat.
no, but that when I saw this card, it really made me intrigued of like, would fire or maybe even any other element have the same ability as that first Rubicante with the special of can't be targeted by a certain element.
Yeah. We should make clear also that we were talking about cards from the old chapter series. right
Yeah.
now. If that hasn't been clear, sorry about that. But I imagine in post we'll put in either a link dump or overlay some images. Right?
Yeah. When this is on YouTube, I'm gonna put all the images up, and then you can see everything. Okay, so next monster is called Illuyankus.
Illuyankus.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that this one is probably the most likely to be printed in the next opus. I don't know. So it's a 2-drop monster. You can have multiple copies on the field.
All right.
When you put it in the break zone, you could choose one forward, deal 4k damage. That's pretty on the curve, I would say.
It's the effect is put it in the break zone. It's
Yes.
not just when it goes to break.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
like
yeah.
the start of EV.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
except
That's
it's
correct.
1,000 less damage.
That's correct. But it has this ability called Blue Magic. Now, Chris is the one that found out what Blue Magic is. Can you explain to the listeners what it is?
Basically, you just discard the monster from your hand and pay the blue magic cost and get the effect. It kind of turns them into summons.
Yeah. So this one actually has a Blue Magic effect, right? You pay 2 fire crystals and 1 any crystal, right? And you choose a forward and deal 7,000 damage. So this one can actually target Mecha Chocobo.
Oh well, yeah, that'd be an interesting way to get around those
Yeah.
effects also. Well, yeah.
So like it's like a 2-drop that you can play early, and then if you want, you can make it into a Brunhilde anytime you want. That's
for
it.
a little extra.
For a little extra,
Well,
but
it
like.
has to be in your hand to make it into a Brunhilde.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's
So
what
you
meant.
so does it need? It doesn't like require you to have one in play, right? It just
No.
you can just discard it and pay
Yes.
its cost.
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
It
So
doesn't EX though.
Yes.
it doesn't
But-
EX, yes, but you know.
Yeah, and
But it's much more flexible, and like you said, Chris, like before when I heard talking, is that flexible cards actually are much more valuable in the Final Fantasy card game
Yeah,
than
prefer-
efficient cards.
Yeah, flexibility over efficiency, which is why 4-drop urgency is a lot of play.
Yeah. And the 4-drop Alexander does.
Not.
Not yet. no, not yet.
No.
But then you open.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this card is very likely to be printed, and I think it'll be pretty cool.
well, it really comes down to whether or not they decide they want the blue magic mechanic in, because we haven't heard anything about it yet.
Oh, that's true.
So
That's true.
it's. I mean, it's not unlikely. I'm not going to say that I
Yeah.
think it's unlikely, but I'd reserve my judgment as to whether or not it's gonna exist in the Opus series.
Sorry, because it's wrong on the screen there. How much does it cost to blue magic?
No, it's two fire crystals and one normal crystal.
So it's the same cost as blue magic.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Except it must be 2 fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plus 1.
Yes, that's correct.
That's kind of. I
I mean,
suppose
like you discard
at
a
the
fire
end-
card.
And at the end of the day, Brunhilde also EX bursts.
That's
so
right.
There's
Yeah,
enough,
yeah.
There are enough points of difference that it's not just a strict upgrade.
That's right. And like, I don't know. I just I quite like it.
Have there been any cards in the game that have just been strict upgrades of others?
Not that I know of. No, I mean like you talk about the old chapter series.
No, I mean like just within Opus.
Oh.
Have there been cards in later Opus sets that are just better versions of other cards?
I
Like
don't know.
I can't think of any. And at the end of the day, there's also the fact that the whole card name category types, jobs, that all of those come into balancing that. So I suppose
Yeah.
you can't have something that is strictly better, not in the traditional sense when you're talking about cards that are just improvements.
Yeah.
Even for standard units, the generic icon is quite a big upside as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's right. Anyways, let's go to the next one. This is called A Griffin
And a Griffin.
because it's a griffin.
It's-
Wow,
If
okay.
you guys didn't get that, no.
Yeah.
No. So it's a 2-cost fire monster. You can put multiple ones on the field. You tap it, you discard a card, and you put it in the break zone. You have to do all 3, and you choose a forward and deal it 8,000 damage.
Okay.
And then the blue magic is similar to Opus 3 Garland, where you can pay 1 fire crystal and then pay whatever cost you want, and choose up to 2 forwards, and deal the 1,000 damage for every CP paid. This is a little bit overpowered. I'm not sure.
Really?
But-
It's very, very expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
You
right,
reckon?
it's very
I've
expensive.
played the new Garland quite extensively.
Yeah.
I really like him, but at the end of the day, he's
Cheaper.
well cheaper. What do you mean?
Cheaper than this.
Well, yeah, he I think he has more of a payoff than this. It's difficult to judge the blue magic. I think just because it does get around the summon like summon proof cards like Mecha Chocobo and Garnet.
Yeah.
All that. So that like if that becomes a big deal, then sure maybe it could be valuable, but paying any kind of variable costs has the reason that Garland works is because his S has a base of 2K.
You mean 6K, doesn't it?
Oh, sorry, 6K.
6K, yeah, 6K,
And
yeah.
and the
Um,
baseline. If you're
the
just
baseline
cutting a
is
card to pay additional, then he increases by 2K.
Yeah.
Whereas-
I
Yeah,
know I
why
said
it's gross.
flexibility is better than efficiency, but you can go too far.
Yeah.
This
Yeah, on
might
one
be
side,
too far on
yeah.
Flexibility.
on
But
the fringe.
so one of the things that I came across was I always like to play more light or dark cards, and I found that I couldn't do it in any other element except for water, and there's only 1 card in wind, I think, and there's 1 card in fire that does discarding a card, which is Bahamut Fury.
Ice can help you discount cards.
Yeah, there's one ice player.
Or playing against an ice opponent.
Yeah, playing against it.
You can play the ice Sephiroth or the ice
Yeah.
Squall.
Yeah.
No, but when you play those, you have to have like no hand to make it most effective.
Well, yeah, you can dump everything other than the life.
I think the point is it's not such a bad thing.
Okay. Yeah, but like so like I was really like experimenting using Bahamut Fury, but do you think there'll be more fire cards that be like just outright discard a card? And I think that when this happens, like, do you think more people will experiment with more light and dark cards within fire?
Well, I think like one of the things we have seen fire cards do is play around with additional costs. Like the Rubicanti from Opus 3
Yeah.
is break a friendly character and deal damage equal to that.
Amaranth.
Yeah, sorry, not yeah. Why am I use that? Amaranth.
Okay, yeah, Amaranth. Yeah.
Amaranth indicates to me an interest in exploring that design space with fire.
Yeah.
So
Even Caius in Opus 4. is
yeah, like
the same
discard,
thing.
discard.
Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah. I mean, but then you can't discard light or dark cards. Like I was specifically focused on.
Okay.
Well,
I want more cards to be like just discard a card, so I'd be like I can discard this extra chaos from my hand.
But Murad, what if the new Bahamut is a light or dark Bahamut?
Ooh. Man, that'll be spicy. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So those are some fire monsters which is I thought
Which
was,
could potentially be.
well, it could potentially be, but you know they've always made new cards, and they're more than likely to at least alter these cards when they come out. But I think it was very informative to talk about them. Yeah, so that pretty much sums up everything that we're going to talk about in fire. You guys want to have? Do you guys want to say any last thoughts about fire? About where does it go? Like sorry, one last thing actually. What do you think Opus 4? What do you think fire needs?
What do I think fire needs?
Yeah, what do you think fire needs in order for it to be a meta deck?
That like within the current meta, it's difficult to say. Like
It needs ice to be really good.
but it has a more effective opponent.
Earth
Buff
is
ice.
good against fire removal. Earth's been good at the moment.
Yeah,
Earth
buff
As
ice.
far as I understand it.
And water
And
as well.
water with Minwu.
Yeah.
Just
Both of
the
those.
things that just happen to be good, just counter fire's
Yeah, that's
efficiency.
right. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's less about fire gaining more cards to up its game. It's more like making other elements worse.
I don't know about that. I think
Like,
there's a
obvious senses are just giving fire the tools to deal with these things. Right?
Oh, but like,
But
what-
that's. I feel like that's obviously taking away the identity from other colours. If fire
That's
could
right,
just
that's
break backups and things.
it's also I
Yeah.
think a balance thing.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
give fire the ability to cover its own
it could-
only real.
what
it,
if those
it
are
could, you
cards?
could have a forward that just straight negates arena saying like the damage can't be prevented.
That would be
Something
a
like that.
cool
Or a card specifically said Minwu dies. Just like kill Minwu. You can't kill any of the backup.
Okay.
All you can kill
Yeah,
is
sure,
Minwu.
Yeah.
Fireplace would really like that, I think.
And then I'll play this card called Lassa.
or how about this? Like something. I don't know whether you put it on a forward, a backup, or a summon, but deal some determined amount of damage.
Yeah.
And if this, it would be a small amount of damage, say 4k or something like that.
Yeah.
If a forward dealt damage by this effect is put into the break zone this turn, pick a backup controlled by an opponent and break it.
So that'd be
That
interesting
sounds.
to play around.
I know that's
Yeah,
that's a really potentially quite powerful effect,
Yeah.
but
Depends on
that's
the number.
that's how I imagine.
Because this number has to kill thing in one go to kill Minwu.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So for 4K
Yeah.
might actually be,
Actually, yeah, no,
Yeah,
It
that,
might be
that,
pretty balanced, yeah.
yeah.
Because
But what people don't realize is
You
that
might-
You'd,
lightning
you'd
anyway.
have to kill like a Viking.
yeah, that's right. But what people don't realize is that sure Earth has removal, and Wind has removal, but Ice has removal as well.
backup removal, you mean?
Yeah. Can you
It's-
tell us what the card is, Chris?
Yes.
You don't like
So,
that card, do
It's
you?
got nothing against the card. It's just there's much better cards. There's and this is again we talk about flexibility and efficiency. There is a limit. I'm not like hard and fast. If something's flexible and it's not efficient, then it's really good. Hades. So
Yeah.
for a completely fair cost, when you add up all the effects of 5 CP, it
Yeah.
dulls a forward, it returns a backup to their hand, and then they discard a card.
Yeah. And if they have empty hand, then they discard the backup. obviously.
It's I think one of the early attempts at a payoff effect for Ice's discard strategy, which it currently sorely lacks, apart from Sid Alstein and Hades.
And
there are
fragile
chaos in
chaos.
other colours, like
That's
Chaos
right.
Walk of the Wheel.
Yeah.
Well-
it's got Leon. It's
Yeah.
got Leon.
Oh,
Yay,
But,
Leon.
but like, again, there's not much of a like.
Hades is a good old-fashioned category 7 summon.
It could be
I
used in
mean-
title series.
Yes.
I mean, like, to be completely honest with you, like, Fire Ice might be the new meta in Opus 4, and they might run Hades just because, you know.
Hey, if they really don't want to run Sephiroth for some reason,
Yeah, and they might run
and
Hades.
then Hades, like, if they really need to get rid of a backup, but I think you have to justify it to hit other things than just Minwoo.
I think
I think
the justification for not playing Sephiroth is you're playing Cloud, or
Which is so good, obviously.
there's or you're playing another dark backup and not devoting space in your not backup dark forward and not devoting space in your backup line to chaos.
But you can argue that like the reason you won't play Hades is because of Belias or because
Yeah,
of
no.
Zalora or because like other powerful summons. It's the same.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
just examining the trade-offs.
Yeah, I think it's too early in the spoiler season to judge.
Yeah,
whether
We,
the
fair
card's
enough.
gonna
we
be-
really
Fair
haven't
enough, fair
seen
enough.
enough to.
And also, if it does become a meta deck, it will have enough good cards to run that Hades is not going to make the cut.
Yeah, I agree.
If
Yeah.
there are 50 good cards, which is necessary in order for it to be a meta deck, Hades
Yeah,
will not be
yeah,
one of
they're
them.
all going to be better cards than Hades.
Yeah.
Unless they get a card that's like a Hades cost 1.
Yeah, exactly,
And then,
exactly. Right? Like,
it has to
like,
do something else as well.
No,
Like
no.
Category 7 summons cost like 2 or 3 less.
No,
Then
no,
Phoenix costs less. And like,
yeah, actually, no,
so-
that's pretty good. What if there's a 2 cost backup that says Hades costs 2 less?
No,
Would you
no,
play that?
No.
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 Why?
Because I don't play Harley.
You have to be devoting a backup slot, and as we've already known,
Yeah.
in Fire your backup slots are important.
That's right, yeah, it's very
They're either your removal or they're the things that close out your game. Your red mages.
That's right, yeah, that's right. Anyways, I think that's enough about Fire. Let's go to the next section, which is our meta report. I have compiled pretty much a total of 26 decks over the last 4 major tournaments. So these 4 major tournaments are the Masters from Japan, the Australian Nationals, the 4th Italian Euro qualifier, and the Nationals in Norway. And so these were all recent, like within a month of each other. We're just gonna talk about the current meta that we're in right now. Let's just talk about what I compiled myself is all the different light and dark cards that are used in all those 26 decks.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a deck that ran both Sephiroth and Minerva. I'm not sure if you guys know.
I saw that.
Yeah,
yes.
that was the Mono Lightning list that person went to the Nationals in Australia. He played Sephiroth and Minerva, and unfortunately I lost to him because
That's very brave.
yeah, I know it's very bad, but I
It's
lost
just
to him
like
because
two
he played Minerva turn 2, and I had no way to remove it, and he won because of all the value he got from it, pretty much. But if he drew a Sephiroth, that would have put him back a lot, but he didn't.
He was drawing 3 cards a turn, right?
Pretty much,
So-
yeah. I don't know. But anyway, so it doesn't matter. So obviously, as everyone would know that the most played card, light or dark card, is the Dane.
Yep.
What I'm interested in looking at there is that all of the current light and dark cards that exist, or are we missing? some?
No, these are all the ones that have been played in those 26 decks.
So what light and dark cards haven't seen any play?
Excluding Chaos and Cosmo, because those ones are like just a backup that you play that pretty much.
Well,
any
but you
deck
also
would
got to
go.
think of gosh, what are they called?
Next
Zodiac,
Zodiac
and
and Ultima.
And Ultima, right?
Yeah.
Because those also were seeing some play at those events.
I don't believe I saw this.
Well, there was at least one deck, because wasn't George playing Border Light?
Well,
Oh, but
this is top.
This is top 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Ah.
Fusoya, which isn't a 4.
Yeah, Fusoya.
Yeah,
Fusoya and
so-
Zemus.
Yeah, so for Soy's Amos I added because that was like part of their game plan.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but it's I guess I looked at all the light dark cards, but I excluded Chaos and Cosmos
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because
Okay.
those
Yeah,
ones
fair.
are like you can use it anytime, but these are part of their game plan. Like this is part of what the decks
Okay.
do. So 7 out of the 26 decks played Zidane.
So is that okay? So 7 decks plays a day.
Yes,
It's
7 decks.
it's also something because they can play more than one of these sometimes if they play Chaos or
The only like I told you, the only one that played more is that Mono Lightning, which played Minerva, and Sephiroth.
What about Onion Knight and Warrior of Light? Did they show up in,
No.
in a Water Light deck? No?
So the Onion Knight
No.
showed up on his own.
Yeah, the Mighty Knight showed up in a gold base deck.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that makes
That
sense.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so there's obviously, I mean, like we can only say so much about Zidane. It's a really high value card, and a lot of people
Mhm.
play. And people, and you know, the person that won the Masters in Japan, he was playing a Mono Lightning, and he played Zidane when he didn't even have any of the other Category 9 to really bring it out with.
It's still a one cost 7k, which is better than anything else in the game. pretty
Yeah,
much.
like you know, he didn't even like try to synergize it. He just put
He's just
Zidane.
playing it.
He's just playing it.
Zidane is just a solid.
He's a
well,
big Viking.
Yeah,
He's a big
very
Viking.
big
He's a
Viking.
very big
Yeah.
Viking.
I don't know. Like personally, I would like save those slots for Emperor, but maybe that's
He's
just me.
better than Sarah as well, so I don't
That's
see
right.
why you wouldn't
That's
play
right.
him.
Yeah. But anyways, actually, the biggest thing that I like from this graph or from this data is that 5 of the decks didn't run either light or dark cards.
Like, it can be punishing to have a light or dark card in
Yeah.
your hand.
But see that's why I really want to talk to you about this in particular is that light and dark cards usually have more value, or they are, you know, have something special.
They're
in them.
high impact.
They're high
players.
impact. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. They're high impact.
Um,
But then, like a lot of decks, like not just one or two, like the second majority are not playing them at all.
They have
You know?
definite drawbacks. They're quite inconsistent, and they're not always flexible because they
Yeah.
only do one thing.
If you look
Because-
at your stats here,
Yeah.
I mean, Zidane is played because he cycles himself
Yeah.
primarily. I mean, there's the flexibility to make your opponent discard a card, and this lightning deck aside, you might play some backups that he interacts with, but most of the time people are just going to use him as a big Viking, and that's because
right.
that you can get him out of your hand, and because he's not a massive forward. He's gonna die at some point.
Yeah.
You're gonna have that slot open to play him again, or at
Yeah.
least that's.
He's
I'm pretty
always
sure the idea.
useful.
Yeah.
Or you just go face with him, and then you go face
Yeah,
with all the
he's
other guys.
always useful, which is why you can play him. Whereas the other light and dark cards are either very focused on one specific kind of thing, or they're like, I'm thinking of the Emperor here, they're kind of answers to things, and the Emperor.
But the Emperor answers a lot of
He
things.
does.
which
The
is what I
Emperor's
do.
really good, but he costs 4. And having a light or dark card that
Yeah,
costs
that's right.
that much in your hand I love the Emperor. I played him a lot in my decks, but I have lost a couple games because I've drawn him. And if I had just drawn a non-light or dark card, I could have continued the game going and not lost.
But like you.
There's that clogging issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you just
Even
someone
with
like
one
one or
copy in the
two,
deck.
like you just one
Even
copy.
with one copy in the deck,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I do share that sentiment. When I was, you know, creating my deck, I you know, because I play Earth a lot, and I always want to play Shantoto if I'm behind, and so I can't afford drawing a light or dark card at some points in the game.
yeah.
And so that's why one time I forgoed having light or dark card, but
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough option. If you draw it, or even by having it, it makes every single other play worse.
yeah,
If you have it, your only option a lot of the time is to play.
it's the
Yeah.
play. Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
always optimal.
Yeah.
If you could go for lethal, like if you have a Shiva and a dark card in hand, if that
Yeah.
was lethal, you just lost the game.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Or you're just not winning.
Yeah,
Or you
you're
just-
not winning.
Yeah, that's it.
There are situations where that
Yeah.
can occur that doesn't lose you the game,
Yeah.
but
I
it
think-
still slows down
Slows
your
down.
your
I
path to
think
victory.
Fusoya illustrates this point really well because Fusoya is amazing if you get it down early
That's right.
because you can use your life as a resource and just kill things basically for free, just like
Yeah.
1 CP, or combine it with something else to be really efficient killing big things. But if you get it late, then either you don't have room left in your backup slots, or it's a dead card in your hand. Otherwise, because you've taken so much damage anyway,
Yeah.
and you can't discard it for CP. And so,
And like people would have to like run 3 and then mulligan for it aggressively.
but then you draw a second one and it's dead
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so I think
That's
Fusoya
why-
perfectly illustrates
But-
this
but-
issue with light and dark cards.
But out of these 26 decks, 3 decks did play for Soya, right? And
Did
it
they
was
have lots of ways to cycle it away?
it's
discount it?
at least 2 of them were lightning water.
Okay, I presume the water had ways
Yeah,
to get rid of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Moogles and
yeah,
beasts
definitely,
and-
definitely. But it was the lightning water variant with the ephemeral summoner and.
That was the top in Australia list, right?
No, there was another one I think in Japan as well.
Oh, okay.
Well, but yeah, I think Australia did play it.
Yeah,
But,
I played 3 of Fusoya.
Other cards that were played, Legendary Emperor was played a lot.
He shuts off so much. That
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, up until Opus 3, there were some elements that just couldn't answer him on their own, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Goodbye, wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but then but now Wind has that.
It has chaos.
Chaos,
So Mono
yeah.
Wind can deal with it.
It has a hope. Be awkward if you. I mean, some of these decks presumably would play more than one.
Yeah.
Chaos, so you might. Oh, not Chaos, Emperor. You Chaos the Emperor, and then, oh, look, there's another Emperor. That solves the clog problem for your opponent and keeps you locked out of the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the rest of the dark cards was just used just because they fit in those people's decks, but I don't think we can actually attribute that to any type of.
People use Sephiroth, as we discussed in the Fire segment, as an answer to problem backups. People use Zemus as a way to get their attack triggers off. And Feral Chaos, some people use it to make sure that their backup line is never full, so they can continue to play their enter the field value backup.
That's right. Feral Chaos is actually very good in Mono Earth.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't have
Try-
much experience with her. So
Well, you get to replay your Rydias, you get to
Yeah,
replay
so-
your
so-
Robons.
So
But
what
there's
do-
so much water. Surely water's amazing against feral chaos.
no, because I
well,
mean
yeah, but you're not going to play against water every game.
the reason why
And
Feral
it-
Chaos
it's
is
horrible against water, and you can't discard it with CP.
That's true.
yeah, but the reason why Feral Chaos is really good in Earth is number one, you can play 3 robots and you can just hope for the EX burst because it's always gonna come.
Mhm.
But the other thing is that when people play Mono Earth, people never expect haste, and then you put down the Feral Chaos, and then you've got lethal, and then you win. like that surprise element is actually really strong, and Earth has so many good backups that you want to play multiple copies of them, and so you play Feral Chaos with the rare deleter, and you can play 20 plus backups, and you'll still be fine. Yeah. But yeah, so that was just a little side report. Let's just before we go into the main elements of the type of decks, I noticed that there was particular combos played, and 6 decks out of the 26 had Elcid combos somewhere in their deck.
So this is playing. Well, it's really just playing El Cid. It's not so much a combo.
It's not a combo.
Oh, wait, no, come on.
It's
Wait,
just
no,
a
no.
package. Yeah.
I mean, like, you have to have Anina Ericdia. So if for whatever reason you had El Cid but you didn't have Anina Ericdia, I wasn't gonna count that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, and there was 6 decks with the YRP combo. A lot of it actually came from the Australian Nationals.
So that's the Yuna Pain Riku synergies.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's correct. The usual way that works is the heroic Riku backup, the rare Yuna backup, and the both forward paints pretty much.
I've seen decks
yeah.
using the heroic unit backup now because it's in wind and it's synergized.
Ah,
with
yes,
Chaos
yes.
Smoke of the Wheel.
That's correct. Some of them do use that, and they use the chaos. But yeah,
It also
definitely.
shuts down a lot of those spoiler decks like Golbez.
That's correct. That's correct. Emperor Zande, we were talking
Yeah,
about that.
Zande.
It's- yeah.
Granola.
Yet another backup that stands in front of Fire's majesty. A water backup. I
This
can't Sephiroth them both.
This one's a bit more brutal to Sephiroth, though,
That's-
at least.
Yeah.
I mean, it had an ETB effect, but still, it cost 5.
Yeah, that's right.
In
Yeah.
a perfect world, you've blown up their Minwu and they have to bounce your Sephiroth so you can blow up their...
Ah, yeah.
And meanwhile, they're at Water Wind and they've got 1 million.
Which Sephiroth can stand in front of 1 million guys.
They're
that
bouncing
are
him,
smaller
aren't they?
than
I
them.
thought you said they were bouncing him.
Yeah, but then you play him again.
Well, no,
Yeah.
you lose that turn.
I know.
Yeah. Some other combos that were just in one of decks, so 1 or 2 was like Golbez, Phoenix Krill, but the rest of them, I mean, obviously there was the Category 9 package, but I couldn't really accurately.
I love the Golbez combo. Play Golbez!
I mean, like, okay.
This amazing combination of plays
Yes.
where you play this one card and this card dies
Yes.
and then something happens.
Oh my
What
god.
a combo!
But Real talk. No, real talk is that with Gomez, you have to build your deck around.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't just
I
splash
know.
Gomez
It's
and be
us,
like,
Yeah,
I mean-
combo deck.
I think the most combo-y of all of these are the interactions with Phoenix, because you've got like you can Phoenix back your Krill, then use one of Krill's S abilities to ruin an opponent's board.
that's correct.
Like I said before, Phoenix and Scarmiglione, there are lots of those little niche interactions there.
Also, it's pretty combo-y. There's all
Yeah,
sorts
well-
of things you can combine with him. You can blink him. You can bring him back with the
That's,
bow.
that's true. You can
That's
do,
right,
you can
yeah.
do those things.
And like I said, there's other ones like the category 9 package, but it was really hard to assess if that's really what they were going for, because not all of them play Steiner. Some of them just play Garnet and Zidane. And would you call that the category 9 package?
Nope.
Not really. Like I don't know. Yeah. So I didn't include that. In
I think
my tally.
I think the 9 package isn't so much a combo as it is just an efficiency engine. It's an engine you build your deck around, sort of like Golbez, but Golbez is the payoff as opposed to what you're doing. Like
It's just the setup. It just.
I don't know if you build your deck around the 9 package. You
Yeah.
have a deck and you put it in
I don't
the
know.
9
Kevin
package.
builds all of his decks around.
I have an idea and then I put the 9 package into
Yeah.
it to make the early game more efficient.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's just the most consistent way to get everything out early game. It gives you
Yeah.
backups, forwards, and
It's
cards.
it's a stable game plan.
Yeah, if you have the 9 package in your deck and you brick, I don't know, like there's a blood moon or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
We're at some sort of cosmic harmonic convergence.
Yeah.
Things are not right in the state of Denmark.
But yeah, but you know what's really interesting? So a lot of people were playing Zidane, we were just talking about that. But
Oh, cool.
with the pain, is if you set up obviously, it's so much better than Zidane.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
because you
yeah.
completely through.
Just and you draw a card.
If you got the setup.
Yeah,
That's
only
the thing,
for
But you need the setup.
Yeah, but
You also need slightly more than the setup. You need a third backup.
Exactly, yeah, that's right. Because I played
I
it,
counted as bad.
Yeah.
I played it early on, and a couple of times I had pain. I had Riku, but I didn't have a third backup, and that felt really bad. honestly.
Yeah, because you
He
have a
didn't have-
discard, you go and tap one and discard.
Yeah, and then it's like, come on.
And then it's just the same as it is.
Exactly, right? And then it's as similar as, oh my god. Anyways, yeah, so I've tallied up all the different elements for the 26
different
decks.
archetypes.
Finally, we get to the deck.
Yeah. So of the main one by a margin is the water wind variant. And the majority of those actually ran obviously the YRP combo with the category 9 package. But there were some slight differences. Like you said, there were some people ran the rare Huna, some people ran the heroic Huna. Some people, some of these decks actually focused on mill. I think one of these decks focused on the legendary Valifor. It played 3 of them.
Okay.
And then it's just
Pain,
like
right? Pain
Yeah.
is really good with Valifor.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that's when it's better than Zidane in that case, right?
Much
Because
better.
you can still play both. Why not?
Yeah, you do. They do.
Waterwind is that pervasive archetype. It's been dominant more or less since the beginning of the Opus series, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So,
It just recurs.
But it's
and the majority of them are built around that YRP package as well.
that's right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's just it comes back to that there's that raw efficiency there that you can build your deck around.
It's always really interesting because
It gives you a clear game plan.
that's right. Yeah. But at the start of the Opus, you barely see any water wind. You you mostly see monocolor elements, and then eventually when everything settles down and the dust settles, they go back to water wind. This has happened twice. Oh, since Opus 2 and Opus 3. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. I think to claim that trend is because of Waterwind just being better than anything else.
Oh no, I'm not. Oh, no, I'm not saying it's better, but I'm saying that it's really interesting how at the start of Opus, pretty much no one is playing it, and then near the end of the Opus, everyone is playing it.
Well, it is boring to experiment with because like most of your cards are already decided. There's nothing really new. It just turns out that the new cards aren't as good as the old cards, and that's why it comes back.
That's right, but I think at least one of them played the Warrior of Light with the Fallacious Wonder and the Hero Bards. You know, that kind of
So
the variant of like
pretty
strong.
much,
So there's a lot of
exactly the
variants.
same as Opus 2.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but with Opus 3,
There's a lot of. Would you say that there's a lot of variance within the archetype then? Though, like you were saying, there was a Bellafor deck.
Some run Warrior of
there.
Light
Yeah.
as well.
So it's it's not like we're saying there's one water wind deck that's pervasive. It's just there's a lot of mutability within the archetype.
It's a very
Yeah.
flexible
I think
combination.
when we start looking at the next ones down on the list, like mono water, you start to see a more homogenized
No, there's I've
set of
seen
lists.
like the mono water decks that I play against are quite different.
Really?
I'd say they're as
That's
different
because
as Water Wind. And
That's
it's the
because
same
you play
game
against
plan.
Kevin.
I know.
And Kevin plays so.
No, I play against Kevin. I play against Tony.
And the Australian Nationals
and
are a
yeah,
lot of
I played in the
Yeah.
Australian Nationals. There was like very different water decks again.
They were all the same to me because I
They-
always bet them.
they all have a very similar playstyle, like Water Wind.
Yeah.
But they're not all running the same cards.
Yeah.
They're running
Mm.
cards that do different things. Like Ash is a big one where they were not to include.
Yeah, see,
things like that.
see. Now that's a card that we can like actually talk quite long about. But a lot of people play one or maybe two of, but people always shy away from three, which is really interesting.
Ash.
Yeah.
I'm not
Um,
sure about Ash. Ash, I think, for mono order is just too expensive. Because
Yeah,
most of
I-
the other cards are cheaper.
I
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
Ice and Lightning, and I love versing an Ash because you dull that Ash for free with something like A1,
Yeah.
or a Genesis or something, and then you go to attack, and they spend 2 CP to activate Ash, and then maybe if you're lucky you can dull it again, and then they spend 2 CP to activate it again, and then you Odin it. And it's like, well, there we go. All those resources into Ash.
Yeah. Anyway, so the next one was Mono Water. After that was Mono Earth, which I actually found pretty interesting. But I just think that it's a very tempo driven deck, and if they can't,
You've
If they-
got efficient, large forwards,
Yeah.
and you're just trying to leverage that against your opponent's game plan.
And it's also very punishing, especially as the format is best of one. If you don't have very specific answers to their players, then you're just going to get run over.
that's correct.
Mhm.
Down the line is Mono Lightning, Golbez, Ice Earth, and Ice Lightning, all at 2 decks.
Mono Lightning, the traditional control archetype, I think,
Kill
in this
everything.
game. Just run as much removal as you can fit in the deck.
Yeah,
and hope that you get through for your full allotment of damage.
Yeah, and Mono Lightning only really came up after Opus 2.
Yeah, which most of the cards came in. You
And
Aeon, Alcid in the Opus.
actually,
Edea is important.
Edea is very important.
Important additions from Opus 3, I think. We've got the legendary X Death.
Yeah, see
Gives
that's
them access to, because they didn't have a
Board
a board wipe until he came along.
and
Deal
now.
Penance is a huge one as well.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Danger,
Mm.
other bigger things.
Like one of the things I found really astonishing when Opus 3 came around was the shift in the Mono Lightning deck's backup line. How like before it was very much similar to what the fire backup lines were in Opus 3. You've got these like the black mages that come in and give minus 4k, and then they'll finish off with something else, or they'll just load up another black mage into the fray. But now it's a lot more like you've got these little incidental pieces of damage that you get your leverage off of the Angel Penance, or even your it's Onion Knight, right? That is the
Onion
bit of
Knight.
damage thing.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damage with damage.
And that's why like one of the Mono Lightning decks ran the Sephiroth, because he does a lot of ping and he doesn't want to deal with minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that like Ice has been played a lot, but it's always paired with a different element.
It's often, I think, seen as a support color, but then there were those mono ice control decks were big in Opus 2. So.
Ice,
They
as
were.
the Opuses come out, Ice is getting more that fills in its holes. Like I said, my favorite card was Mumba, because at the time it filled in a lot of holes for Ice. It got Zalora in Opus 3, it's getting Mecha Chocobo to deal with the 4-drops and the 1-drops in Opus 4. So over time, Ice is becoming its own thing.
Do you think that come Opus 4, mono ice will be a big player?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Depends on what all the other elements get.
Yeah, we've only seen one card as well, so
Yeah.
it's a bit too quick to judge.
Yeah.
And also, it can give Mecha Chocobo haste.
Yeah.
Ice is very slow
Mm.
without haste.
Ice right now has a lot of its payoffs in other elements, which is why I think it's always
You
been
have to
splashed.
take a lot of time to build up your critical mass as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, the rest of the decks were pretty much like one-off decks. Fire, Water, Ice, Wind, Earth, Lightning. I think that was a night deck. Lightning, Wind, and Lightning, Water. These were all kind of like one of. I think they did definitely surprise their opponents, but I wouldn't really say that they were meta. Those other decks above, for Mono Lightning and above, were probably more meta.
It's always a big factor at these large events, the surprise factor, showing up with something that the players who've shown up with the meta decks, showing up with something that they're not prepared to answer, can throw people off their game.
That's correct. That's correct. And I think a lot of people need to capitalize on that and stop playing Water Wind.
It's not like it's, you know, like 6 out of 26. It's the most popular deck.
It's cool. I mean,
like,
you see, no, like, you know,
It's only
that's the other thing. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no.
That's the other thing. So, like, FFTCG is such in a healthy space that all these decks can coexist within the same tournaments, and they can all win.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 is not even that much of 26, like Chris was saying, but it's still a lot. That's too much. It's still too much.
It's too much.
One day. It's fine. I think.
It's still a fairly even spread.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not even a quarter.
That's true. That's true. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone that was listening. I would like to thank Kevin, Jared, and Chris for joining me today,
Yeah, no
so we
problem.
can talk about this game that we all love. Do you guys have any closing remarks?
No, I think this was a nice brief overview of things for our
Good
first
start, I
episode.
I thought you were gonna say something about Mecha Chocobo.
It came to my head. But, you know,
Why don't start him? He'll never stop.
Yeah, but we have more episodes to go.
Let me.
And Mecha Chocobo will probably be our card of the week more than just this one.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna win a tournament in Opus 4 and spin
Then
an
you'll
entire
never hear
podcast.
the end.
Yeah, you should be happy that you're not Facebook friends with Chris. Otherwise, he'll go on and on and on.
It's true.
Anyways, thank you guys, and hope you join us in 2 weeks' time for our next episode, where we're gonna talk about ice. We're gonna have a favorite card of the week, and we're gonna have a completely new segment. You're gonna have to tune in to find out. Thank you, everyone, and good night.